Tonight, Voodoo gives DC its very own clone saga to play with. Justice League Dark's current arc just kind of stops. And in Batman the Dark Knight, it's BVS, and the stakes have never been lower. All that and more this week on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 21 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and for those of you who have heard a couple of episodes, you probably know that a lot of the time I say, alright, let's jump right into it because I have so many comics this week and I talk for way too long and yada yada yada. Well, that's also true for this one, so let's jump right into it because I have so many comics this week and I talk for way too long, yada, yada, yada. So, January 25th, 2012 has the number 5 comics of Batman the Dark Knight, Superman, Green Lantern New Guardians, Aquaman, The Flash, The Fury of Firestorm, Justice League, The Savage Hawkman, All-Star Western, Blackhawks, Voodoo, Teen Titans, I, Vampire, and Justice League Dark, as well as the number 4 issue of the miniseries, Legion's Secret Origin. One of those is my redheaded stepchild, and I'm not going to tell you who, Legion. So, let's go ahead and jump in with Comic of the Week number 1. Batman the Dark Knight number 5, written by Paul Jenkins, art by David Finch. We left off last issue with Batman being thrown out, falling, whatever, out of a plane by Deathstroke. He lands in the woods next to a cabin, goes inside, and wouldn't you know, it's Scarecrow, who is, of course, the mastermind of the fear-removing toxin operation of the entire series so far. This issue picks up, he just starts fighting Scarecrow. Scarecrow unleashes his fear toxin and just starts going off on the whole philosophy thing of, oh, Batman, fear is the truth and life, and you will see behind it, and Batman just charges through, and he's like, you've tried the fear toxin stuff on me before. I always beat it. And he's like, perhaps, but this time I know your secret. That heroism is the mask that you use to hide your fear. And it's like, okay, this is just more philosophy. It's everything we've been covering in the past few issues. But he doses him with the fear toxin, and it, works. Batman lands a few hits, but then we see the inner machination of Batman's fears, and it's a bunch of, the Bat Family and the Rogues Gallery and all these creepy looking images, and it's nice art. I'm not going to say it's not nice art. In fact, this entire issue feels like it's mostly about the art and not so much the writing, but I'll get to that. But we get some double page spreads on that. And then Batman pushes through it. He tackles Scarecrow, or at least he thinks he does. It's all in his head already. And Scarecrow just basically points out, the thing you're afraid of is the fact that you're not saving everybody, that someone out there is going to get hurt. And you know what? You're right. Doesn't that suck? So he's basically just showing, he's trying to land a couple of hits on Batman, which it's Scarecrow against Batman. Physically, that doesn't seem to work. But hey, there's blood being drawn, so something's happening. And Scarecrow just basically tells him, I'm going to show everyone in Gotham that underneath you're just as scared and empty as everyone else. So Batman's cowering, trying to get over the fear toxin. And, talking a big game, but still just down on the ground, basically fetal position. And Scarecrow whips out the serum that he's been using on everybody else. And he's like, all right, well, time to use this. So he jams in the anti-fear toxin, the reverse fear, whatever you want to call it. And Batman freaks out, but then collapses as Scarecrow's like, okay, well, somebody's coming, so I gotta go. Bye. And he just walks out the front door, closes it behind him. And who should come in behind him but Superman, with his glowing heat vision eyes, as he stands over Batman's possibly lifeless corpse. But Superman's like, hey, Batman, Wonder Woman said you needed help. What's up? And Batman's like, oh, you gotta go get Scarecrow. Just get away from me. And Superman's like, oh, Scarecrow, this is fear toxin stuff? Oh, don't worry, buddy. You beat that 100 times. There's nothing else to get to. He's like, get away from me, you alien. And then he freaks out and punches Superman through a wall. He's fully hulked out and doing all the anti-fear stuff as everybody else. He ain't afraid of nothing. So then it's just this whole, it's BVS. It's literally just Batman v Superman for the rest of the issue. He's landing hits on Superman, and they're actually causing some amount of damage because he's extra strong now, I guess. And Superman just keeps telling him, like, dude, I get that this is probably a fear toxin thing, but you know that you are no physical match for me. Please stand down or I will knock you down. And Batman just keeps going on like, you show up, wrap yourself in the American flag and try to control us, you fascist alien. Those Justice League members, they're perverting my sense of justice, so I'll take them out next and blah, blah, blah. And I know you're afraid of me. And Superman's like, all right, well, that's enough. And he just basically, he has Batman up in the air while they're fighting, and he just drops him, or tosses him to the ground, I should say. Which is, of course, enough, because Batman's just human. He goes through the roof of the cabin, he collapses on the ground, and seemingly goes back to normal without the whole nearly dying thing that everyone else has. But as Superman lands, he lands down next to Batman, says, Batman, I'm sorry, A Batman? Yoo-hoo, Batman. And once again, his heat vision eyes activate, which I really, I don't understand why this is here, but they're doing it, so whatever. And that's actually where the issue ends. So this really feels like more of a stopgap than anything else. I don't know how else to put it, because it's just like everything that Scarecrow was saying in the front half, we've already heard by everyone else who's taken that serum about, but fear is the real truth and blah, blah, blah. And even Batman's narration to himself throughout this whole comic is about how his own fear and blah, 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 blah. Like, they're just repeating the same points over and over and over again. It's like, okay, class, you have to write a one-page essay on fear and how it is either useful or not. Go. And then this is just a collection of that class's essays, one per issue. It's not helpful to me. Ugh. And when it comes down to the art, it's fine. It's great. There's actually 2 double-page spreads in here. One of Batman punching Superman in the rain and the lightning, and another of Batman's fears. Both of which, fantastic. I cannot fault the art at all. It is very well done. My only critique is, why does Superman have his heat vision eyes going? He has it when he visits Batman and just walks in on his possibly mangled corpse, and then does it again as he hovers over Batman's possibly mangled corpse. Is it supposed to be like an X-ray thing? It's definitely red heat vision, though, so I don't know. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. I'm done with the fear philosophy class. I really am. It's just not... It's not doing anything. This issue especially. What was discovered this issue? What was done this issue? What proceeded this issue? Nothing. We already figured Scarecrow's behind it because, of course, he is. It's fear toxin. And Batman got dosed, and of course he's not going to die, so he's going to come back in the next issue. So, what are we doing here? It gets a 6 because I don't feel like anything's happening. And this is supposed to be the big blockbuster thing, but even this action scene of Batman v Superman is all right, well, he doesn't have kryptonite, so we know nothing's going to happen here. So, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm hoping for in this book anymore. I'm hoping that it changes the story. Superman number 5, written by George Perez, art by Nicola Scott. We left off last issue with Superman finally being confronted by those 3 aliens of fire, ice, and invisible lizard, and them telling him that he was the one who created them as he fades to black. This issue picks up with everybody, the police, the firefighters, the press, all converging on this abandoned lot that has this giant fire ice tornado thing going on. And everyone's freaking out because where could Clark be? What's inside the thing? Are there any village? It's just, the writing has not stopped being so overwritten this entire time, and I'm skipping over so much that just doesn't matter. But they look inside the tornado, and Superman's there on fire and ice, and they're like, oh my god, Superman's in there, and it looks like he's smiling? That's weird. And as they look up at him, he starts absorbing the energy, and they're like, is that a power he has? I'm unfamiliar with that one. But he lands, and there's a chopper nearby who's trying to get in close to hear what he's saying, And they pick up that he said like that same alien thing in the same alien speech as before. And they're like, oh, that must be important. But then he looks up at the chopper and he sees McCoy there, the reporter who was giving Superman crap before. And he's like, Messiah or Menace, huh? And he flies down and picks up the 3 people who were like possessed by the aliens before. And he's like, these citizens require help. I will leave them in your care because I am Superman and I have to go save my city. And off he flies. There's one page here of them trying to get into a hospital in order to get some more information on the patients. That genuinely doesn't matter. And then we get to the bulk of this issue, which is basically, you remember like 2 issues ago, there was the story by McCoy, Messiah or Menace, where he went and said like, and then Superman saved us from these giant robots, and then from Titano, the giant ape, and then from these guys in jetpacks. Like, they did that. Well, apparently Superman didn't allow for any of those things to be destroyed or killed, and as such, they're still just hanging around in Metropolis, being studied and or, in the jetpacks people's case, in jail. But alarm's going off and Superman has bust through the wall of the place where the robots are being held. And the soldier's like, hey, Superman, you wanted us to keep these things here and study them. Did that change? And he's like, yes, as long as these things are here, Metropolis will never be safe. I'm going to destroy them now. And he heat visions it. And like causes massive explosions that seemingly injure some of the soldiers that are guarding it. News is freaking out a little bit, like, what is Superman doing? Then he goes to the place where Titano's being held. The scientist there is like, Superman, what? Come on, man, this is a lab. All right, fine, Titano's still here, but, we're still studying him. Can't get anything yet, but, we're trying to be as non-invasive as possible, considering he's a living being. So, and then Superman's like, so Titano's still alive and there's no change in him doing anything? He's like, well, yeah, I guess that's true. Burp. Heat vision. And then we cut to the inmates, the jetpack gang, are being escorted to a maximum security prison because, as it turns out, Superman's probably going to come and kill them. And the guy who's in charge of the gang's like, Superman would never do that. He had his chance back in the day. He wouldn't do it now. And then they hit a patch of ice, and the truck flips over, and Superman's like, guess what I'm here to do? And he's using this rhetoric, this, you declared victory, asserting that Superman couldn't protect everyone. Such dissident claims cannot be left unchallenged, and shall not be spoken again. And, supposedly kills them. We don't actually get, don't think we get actual confirmation he killed them. Nope, frozen to death, Superman, icy cold breath. So it wasn't heat vision. They were frozen to death. That's a step up. Anyway, Lois is trying to hack into something. She asked for Jimmy Olsen's help because she wants to be under the table, like no one can know about it or ask any questions. And it has something to do with Superman, I'm sure. But meanwhile, while this is going on, McCoy is giving another report on Superman saying, like, see, I told you he's evil. Let's go interview Superman's longest supporters. And there's like the police commissioner who's like, Superman, I'm disappointed, but why are you doing this? I thought we were buddies. And Superman's just, doing things like killing small-time thugs and whatever, not respecting the police that come by. And the mayor steps in. He's like, look, Superman, this can't continue. Please stop. And we cut over to General Lane, who's watching this news report, and he's like, well, Superman's gone evil. Launch the K Squadron. I'm so excited. And then some guy steps in. He's like, actually, sir, you may want to look back at that screen. And they look back up, and Superman has bust through the wall of the studio. And he's like, McCoy, I listen to everyone in this city so that I can keep them safe. And I'm not gonna stand for the things you're saying because it's not keeping this city safe. And he lifts McCoy up through the roof, dangles him over the edge of the Daily Planet, and threatens to drop him. This whole time, Lois is freaking out, trying to call Clark. But, like, the way it's written, she calls Clark in a way that I'm pretty sure she knows Clark is Superman. Like, I'm 95% sure on that. Because in the end, Superman does end up dropping McCoy. Helicopter pilot freaks out, and then Lois, yells Clark. And when she does so, Superman's eyes jolt open. And it turns out Superman's actually in, the outer atmosphere. He's in space right now. And he's covered in all these tiny little spiders. And he has no idea what he's doing there, and all he can All he can do is hear Lois's voice and wonder, like, what's going on? And that's where we leave off the issue. Superman's covered in space spiders. I didn't see that one coming. Honestly, I am so happy for this issue. I am so, like, I have been saying throughout the series, I needed it to do something, anything, just move on. Because so many issues were just, well, that was a weird occurrence. Goodbye. I needed them to thread it all together. And I knew they would get there, but 5 issues was too long for that. I'm happy we have this issue, though. I am very happy that, there's a fake Superman running around, and it's probably based around those 3 aliens, however that may be. I'm so good with that. It doesn't really leave a lot in terms of like, okay, well, what do we do with that? I'm sure Superman will come back down and fight the evil Superman. I don't know how it's going to end. I'm sure our Superman will win. But regardless, I don't know why we had to have those 3 aliens to begin with. I'm interested to see what that conclusion is going to be. But overall, I'm going to give this one a 6.5. Honestly, that's probably a little bit high for this individual issue, because this issue is fine. It's not great. But compared to those first 4 issues, this is a godsend. So hopefully we can keep that momentum going. God, I hope so. Green Lantern New Guardians number 5, written by Tony Bedard, art by Tyler Kirkham. We left off last issue with Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern, sending the New Guardians out on a trip to this giant solar system sized and shaped spaceship that appeared in the middle of a galactic core. And this issue just picks up right with them arriving. So they show up and they're all freaked out by the sheer scale of it, how it is literally an entire solar system. It's surrounded by alien ships, and Kyle's like, hey, Ring, could you tell all those ships to get away? Because we're about to go mess some stuff up in there. And the Ring's like, dude, all the ships are empty. There's no one in there. And he's like, okay, well, there was somebody in there yesterday, so that's weird. And as they approach the ship, just some petty little arguments break out. Arkilla's all pissed off at Saint Walker, and Kyle doesn't trust the Indigo tribe member Monk, and, just little infighting. And they realize, okay, this thing's massive enough, we need to split up. But we can't go individually because nobody here trusts each other, so we're going to have to go in teams of 2. And Kyle tells Arkilla to go with Glomulus, the Orange Lantern, construct. And he's like, I'm not going with that thing. Are you kidding me? Nah, he's an idiot. I'll go alone. And Kyle's like, you're not going alone, dude. And so St. Walker stops. So it's like, dude, I'll go with him. It's cool. No problem. So Monk and Fatality, the Indigo and Pink Lanterns, go about on a team. So that just leaves Kyle and Glomulus. And he's like, all right, that's fantastic. Meanwhile, we see what's happening to Bleeze. She comes back to the Red Lantern planet, reports to Atrocitus, who's asking, like, hey, you find out who took that ring off of our Red Lantern? And he's like, no, but maybe ring broken. And Atrocitus is so pissed off at how useless she is because she can't make thoughts out of her rage that he grabs her by the neck and, plunges her into the blood ocean on Yzmalt, which, if you were reading Red Lantern, is decidedly not why he did that. But I went back and read Red Lanterns number 1 and 2 just for this, and technically it doesn't conflict with anything that was shown. So you're on thin ice, Tony Bedard. Regardless, it cuts back to Okara. Larfleeze is there with Sade the Guardian, and she's like, hey, they're about to go inside of that ship. Once they do, I'm not going to have any contact. I just want to be clear on that. And Larfleeze is like, yeah, no, as long as they beat the guy in there. Anyway, get me some rat waffle cheese, which is the thing. Apparently, Larfleeze wants the big toy all for himself. Of course he does. That's his whole thing. So Kyle and Glomulus approach a door and start prying it open. Glomulus helps out. And he's not exactly intelligent, but he is sentient. He's an idiot, but he's real. And Kyle even asked about that. He's like, aren't you just a construct? And no, it's like, Glomulus is not Larfleeze. Glomulus is Glomulus. And Kyle's like, all right, whatever. So then we cut to St. Walker and Arkillo. They just came inside one of the globes, and inside is this entire, desert-looking planet with an entire alien society there. Arkillo starts freaking out because it looks like they fire missiles up at them. But as it turns out, it's actually just they can fly, and when they do, they engulf their bodies in flame. And they come up and they're like, hello, friends. What nice rings you have. Then we cut over to Fatality and Monk. And Monk is like, all right, well, there's something fatalities like there's something familiar about this place. But then they start talking about their histories and whatever, and Monk's confused by fatalities in the love core, considering she's killed so many Green Lanterns, and she's just like, I'm doing it to make up for amends. What about you, Monk? What's your history? You're in compassion core, but you act like a soldier. What's up with that? And he stays silent, but then they're all attacked by a group of warrior, blue-skinned people. And they start fighting, not to kill, just to protect themselves. And one of the moves that Fatality does causes the general of the group to like hold everybody back. And he's like, "Where did you learn that fighting style?" And he's like, "I learned it many years ago on Okara." And he's like, "Well, that's impossible because this is Okara." And then we go back to St. Walker and Arkillo, who are just discovering that their planet that they're on is Tamaran, a.k.a. home of Starfire's race. So that's something. And they're just happy to see him because they think that they are envoys of this archangel that protects them. And St. Walker's like, "Okay, you're right. We are. Tell us everything you know about Archangel, please." And then we cut to Kyle and Glomulus, who are inside yet another world. It's this metropolis, like super futuristic looking city. They land down and everyone starts freaking out. Not at Kyle, but at Glomulus. And they call him the Beast. So they go to the cathedral and they see this giant statue there. And they're like, "Okay, well," and everyone's still running. And they're like, "All right, can someone tell us what's up?" And they come across a priest. And he's like, "Hey, do you know why everyone's running? Like, we just arrived. We haven't done anything yet." And he's like, "Oh, but your friend here has that symbol on his chest." And the priest goes inside and technically is running away from them, but he leads them deeper into the cathedral and shows that the adversary to the great archangel is Larfleeze. So he has the symbol of the Orange Lantern Corps on him, and Glomulus also has that. Glomulus is confused. He has no idea what's going on. Then an alarm starts going off, and the priest is like, "Oh, you done did it now. Whenever our people are in trouble, that alarm sounds off, and the archangel comes and protects us, because we are his children, and he is our God. And he knows all of our... He's coming for you." That's basically the gist of it. And his name is Invictus, and he's aroused from his slumber in the sun, and he's coming for the lanterns. And that's where we leave off. And he's this big, bulky, hulking-looking dude as well. I like this issue. It's good. The Red Lantern thing threw me for a loop because I was so certain that's not how that happened, but it fits, and it bothers me that it fits. No, I'm okay with this book so far. It's setting up the team dynamics well because it's splitting them up. It's letting the dynamics between not exactly opposites, but, you know, Kyle and just a complete idiot of an Orange Lantern. Blue Lanterns and Yellow Lanterns are pretty much opposites, and I don't know that much about the Star Sapphires and the Indigo Tribe, but they seem like they got a thing going on, so we can explore them both together. I like the way this is exploring the team. Art-wise, it's also fantastic. I have nothing bad to say about it at all. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 7.5. I am really liking it. I'm liking how it's developing. We'll see if this villain is anything to care about, because, you know, they're just kind of dropping it. Like, he's already on the prowl to come after our guys, and he just got introduced this issue. Like, okay. I mean, I can accept that. It's fine. So yeah, 7.5. See how it goes from there. Aquaman, number 5, written by Geoff Johns, art by Ivan Reis. We left off last issue with the end of the Trench arc. I say that questionably because this kind of continues on in a weird way, but it's also very standalone. So the issue picks up with Aquaman falling out of the sky and landing in a giant desert in every direction. And he looks around, sees there's nothing in sight, and he just goes, uh-oh. And we get a flashback to 12 hours earlier. There's a storm going on, and Aquaman can't sleep. He's thinking about the stuff he saw down in the trench. Mara wakes up and is like, "What's going on, honey?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it, just go back to sleep." But his phone starts ringing, and when he goes to pick it up, apparently it's the U.S. Navy calling, and they're freaking out. Aquaman doesn't understand how he got the number, but they're freaking out. They apparently went down to the trench, or maybe Aquaman brought some stuff up. It's a bit unclear, but regardless, they pried open one of like the cocoons and discovered an artifact inside of it. And when they pulled it out, it exploded with this just ear-piercing sound that they can't get to stop. Or at least when it's in, like, the water or something like that. And they say it sounds like a dolphin, like, trying to talk, so maybe he can do it. And it's shaped like the same letter A that he finds on his belt, so clearly it's Aquaman's, because A stands for Aquaman. And Aquaman's like, no, actually A stands for Atlantis, but, all right, I guess I can come check it out. So then we cut back to the desert. He's walking around. He sees that he has a giant shard of glass just embedded in his leg, so he rips it out, yelling in pain. He walks for a little bit longer. He's losing blood quick. He ends up stripping off his like scale orange tunic, and as he stumbles down one of the dunes, he comes across his trident. He's like, all right, cool. Now I just need water. And he collapses into the sand. Cut back to, he's at the lab, he's looking at it, and he's like, okay, well, this is the part of a hull of an ancient Atlantean ship. I'm not entirely sure what this thing is, but it's definitely messing with me a lot more than you, because I've got super hearing. And Aquaman, the guy behind him's like, you have super hearing? You mean like Superman? It's like, nope, kind of like me. I feel like I had it too, but whatever. So he concludes that it's some sort of black box device used for like Atlantean, record keeping. It's basically just a recording device for that old ancient ship. And as he's looking at it, some people come in, they attack and steal what Aquaman's holding. Aquaman just runs after them. They've got a full-on like super advanced aircraft jet looking thing, and Aquaman just jumps up, grabs onto the outside of the hull of it, in spite of what the Navy commander's telling him, and he takes off with it. Got back to the desert. Aquaman's hallucinating now. He sees his dad. And his dad is not exactly supportive. He's like, yeah, the water never did bring us anything but misery, did it? I mean, sure, it brought me your mom, but your mom ended up causing me a lot of pain, leaving me anyway. And he basically Aquaman's just begging his hallucination of a dad for help. Meanwhile, his dad is just tearing into him, telling him like, you don't belong to the water or the land. You don't belong anywhere. How dare you? How dare you? You will always be lost. And Aquaman manages to come to. He's like, okay, you're not real. And he uses his mental powers to summon a small lizard in front of him. And he's like, oh, you're the only life out here. Okay, all right. Got to listen for it. And he uses his super hearing to listen for that small electronic ee. Cut back to when he's on the plane. We see him break open the hull and start attacking the people inside. They're all wearing masks. He has no idea who they are. But as he busts open one of their masks, water pours from it. Like it was a reverse scuba diving gear thing. And he immediately concludes like, oh, you're Atlantean. And immediately the pilots start freaking out. They're like, oh, we have a leak. Don't fire, don't fire. Someone fires. The ship explodes and Aquaman, he falls into the desert. That's where we picked up from. So now we see him approaching the wreck. He follows the high-pitched squeal there. He picks it up and he's like, all right, this thing only is going to turn on if I put it into water, so let's do it. So he puts it into some of the water that was inside one of the helmets after it crashed, and immediately it brings up this hologram that's like, okay, hi, hello, Atlantis is in danger. I command this ship. We were pursuing the enemy to the depths of the ocean, but something attacked us in the trench, and we lost control, and they're outside, so we don't have long before they break through. And Arthur's just watching this like, okay, all right, what's going on? And apparently the enemy, whoever it may be, is planning to sink Atlantis. And he's only planning to do this because of something that the king and queen hid from their people. And at that moment, the ship is breached and they're attacked and the hologram ends. So Aquaman collapses. He's out of energy. He's like, I have no idea what that means. And of course, at that moment, the Navy gets a helicopter out there and rescues Aquaman. So it makes a few headlines. Everyone's laughing. Ha ha ha. What was Aquaman doing out in the desert, silly Aquaman? And he gets back home and he pets his dog. And he's trying to call out for Mara, but Mara, he sees, left a note saying, went to town for dog food. And that's where the issue ends, which makes me think the next issue is just going to be covering her going to town on her own, which is going to be a hell of an interesting one. I enjoy this issue. It's a standalone thing in terms of you could probably have told this however you wanted. Like, it's not dictated by the plot that he had to be out in the desert. But it was creative enough and interesting enough on its own that I am very much down for this setup of like, okay, Atlantis was like attacked and it was sunk by some villain that now Aquaman has a vested interest in figuring out who that was. Why did the king and queen hide something? It's setting up a few more mysteries that can be resolved in a couple of issues. The art-wise, setting in the desert gives you a very different look at things than all the blues and whatever, and it's definitely standing up to it. It's definitely looking fantastic the whole way through. You definitely feel the expanse of the desert as well. Overall, I think this issue is very well done. My only critique on it is that because of those last few panels, it does feel like it kind of just flops at the end, where it's just like, oh, okay, he gets home and then Mare's not there. Where it's like, okay, it's not even like, I mean, I give comic cliffhangers a little bit of shit sometimes, but that's not even an ending. That's just, oh, she went out for food, okay. So overall, I am going to give this one an 8. I think it's very well done, and I would very much suggest checking it out. I would check out the whole run, obviously, but if you just had to check out one issue, Aquaman number 5 is a pretty good one. But yeah, no, it's solid. It's staying solid, and I can't wait to read more of it. The Flash number 5, written by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato, art by Francis Manapul. We left off last issue with Barry just remembering, oh yeah, right, I'm the Flash, and I can do pretty much anything I want. And then he proceeds to do that in this issue. So this issue picks up with Mob Rule taking Dr. Elias down to the basement of his lab, and he's like, yeah, no, my genetic recoder is down here, and luckily it can be started up despite the EMP because I've got that alternative energy source. So let's get started as other members of Mob Rule start collapsing around him. We cut over to Iron Heights. Iris is being attacked by a bunch of the inmates, particularly Folded Man and Girder. Sure. And it's all icy there because Captain Cold's taken over. Then we go back to the bridge where it's a standoff between police and civilians because the police are still not letting people cross, considering that, a plane went through the bridge the other day. And the citizens are getting all angry. They're like, let us cross, it's blah, blah, blah. And Patty's there, and she's looking down the river, and she sees that Flash, is running down towards them with 2 giant steam barges in his, slipstream, in, his air draft. And he's like, well, this is what I do. Pretty much anything I need to do. So he delivers these things to the bridge, and he's like, hey, here's some emergency supplies on here, and also these should be enough to get people where they need to go. Also, that bridge isn't going to blow up. It totally would have earlier. It's safe. You're good to go. And all of a sudden it's like, thank you, Flash. Amazing. And then he looks in the river and sees some ice floating along, and he's like, that's downstream from Iron Heights. Okay, next stop. And he runs up to Iron Heights just as Iris is holding her own against all the supervillains. He runs in and basically just takes care of all of them in one fell swoop. And he talks to Iris, and he's like, are you all right? And she's like, yeah, sorry about whatever story I was talking about 3 issues ago, but message from Captain Cold. He says he's ready to take things to the next level, and he's coming for you. And he's like, cool, that'll have to wait till next arc. I've got some other thing to do. So he brings Iris back into the city, and then we see Manuel is willingly just giving up to Mob Rule. He's like, all right, if you just want to read my code and get it into them, whatever's wrong with them, fix it, I'm down with it. We could save them. And Elias is in on it. He's like, cool, awesome. We're going to save everybody in this room. It should, in theory, only target the people that have this messed up DNA. So here's hoping. And, of course, at that moment, there's, it's a giant green light coming out of the sky, so Flash, of course, runs towards it. He gets there, and Mob Rule's immediately like, oh, we got to stop him. Don't let him interfere. And Flash is like, where's Manuel and Elias? And they start fighting, and, of course, Mob Rule starts surrounding him, and Barry, of course, just bursts right through, because he's the Flash. He runs right up to Manuel, is about to pull him out of the chair, and Elias is like, whoa, hold on. He's cool with this, and it's working, so chill. And Flash is like, oh, all right, cool. Guess I'll just be here. So the clones start feeling something happening, and Manuel starts feeling intense pain. Something's clearly going wrong. And it looks like the green energy reactor or whatever that's powering it is starting to literally explode. Like it's not holding its charge or whatever. And Flash is like, I can contain the explosion. I can try. So he runs around it really, really fast in order to stop the explosion, which he says, I'm sorry, Manuel, as if accepting that it's going to kill him because Manuel is also within the vortex. But he runs really fast. He shoots the vortex up into the sky, and then it just disappears. And Flash collapses, and Manuel gets up from his chair. He's totally fine. And he looks around at all the mob rule, and just all of them are dead. Didn't work. They tried, but all of them are dead. And Manuel is just like heartbroken. He's upset that this just, all that, and it didn't work. So he goes over and he kicks Flash in the head, who was already exhausted, and he chokes out Elias and knocks him out as well. And is just like, they didn't all have to die. This is your fault, blah. And then he leaves. He just, everyone's either dead or unconscious around him, so he leaves. We get to the warehouse district, which I think is where Barry took the bullet like 2 issues ago. And there's a couple of skulls in the wreckage of the explosion. And Patty, of course, thinks that means Barry's dead in there. But then Barry just shows up right behind. And I'm just like, hi, I'm here. No explanation will be given. And, they hug, they embrace, and they're happy to see each other. And Patty's like, no, we're your family, because something in there was about family. We see Manuel is now on a train car, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna make mob rule thing again. And we see that he's already gotten to like chopping off some limbs and getting some new mob rule members. And then we see Flash talking to Dr. Elias, and he's like, okay, so here's the thing. That electromagnetic pulse that was coming out of the thing, turns out you didn't just contain it, you sent it back in time. That was the EMP that caused all this to happen 3 days ago. The one that we just did last night. And Barry's like, I can't travel through time. What are you kidding me? He's like, no, you can't, but the Speed Force is something, man. So, unfortunately, it's causing rifts in space-time, and if you keep on running at, those fastest speeds, we're going to have problems. So, unfortunately, Flash, the cliffhanger is, we have to destroy the Speed Force. Da-da-da. I like this one. It's a good wrap-up, all things considered. I never really got Manuel was, about. He feels so nothing of a character in the end, because all that of no, they're going to take me and they're going to use me or whatever. And then in the end, he's like, whatever, get it over with. And then when it doesn't work and they all die, he's like, you know what? I think we had a pretty good thing going there. It's just too much flip-flopping for me. Whatever. I'm okay with the time travel thing. I like that. It's actually an interesting way to explore Barry's powers more, because that's all this has been, is exploring, okay, what can the Flash do? So we had the, super speed thinking that he had to deal with this arc, and now we're going to get into, you can kind of tear open space and time. So we're going to be exploring that. At least it sounds like they will. I'm going to give this one a 7.5. I think it's very well done. The art is, of course, fantastic throughout. It's got, it's Manapul. What more do I need to say about that? So, 8 for Flash, and 7.5 for Flash, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the next story arc, whatever you want to call it, has in store. The Fury of Firestorm, The Nuclear Men, number 5, written by Ethan Van Sciver and Gail Simone, art by Yıldıray Çınar. We left off last issue with Jason dropping off his girlfriend in the hospital and then being stopped by the Zither people, aka the bad guys, and Ronnie already being totally teamed up with them and saying how cool they are. This issue picks up in Siberia. We get a large man talking to a smaller man who's apparently the inspector and saying hey, so we know you've been doing good work here with all this nuclear whatever stuff, but we're just going to stick to normal nukes instead of this human program you got going on, so your funding is cut. And he's like, okay, look, I understand what you're saying, but how about you take a look at this real quick? And they have a captive person who got the Firestorm protocols and was a rogue one. And apparently, he was just going to cause a little bit of slight terrorism throughout. And so as soon as they unmask him, he turns into a Firestorm. And immediately the larger Russian man turns into Posar. And he's like, now, imagine, Inspector, that one of these guys is at our doorstep. your nukes are not going to do anything except make him stronger and angrier. But me, Posar, I can do this. And he, like, does a little energy ball thing, grabs the guy, and just destroys him into nothing but dust. And he's like, so, it's not about if you're going to give us money, Inspector. It's about how much money you're going to give us. So, yeah, they're going to keep researching Firestorm, I guess. Anyway, we pick back up. We're at Zither Tech compound in the Nevada desert. Jason wakes up from a nightmare of Fury. He's telling him, like, oh, you don't even know the crap you're in right now, Jason. Wake up. And when he wakes up, he realizes where he is. We see that Madam Zither, Director Zither, is staring at him through a bunch of, surveillance cameras. And she's like, now, I want him to have a good time. So let's please be kind to him in order to persuade him to us. So they send, like, some flowers and say that, please get dressed. Breakfast will be ready soon. And immediately Jason's like, okay, well, they're clearly up to no good. And as he exits his room, he sees there's a bunch of security guards with, like, shotguns who are like, we're here to bring you down to breakfast. And Jason immediately was like, well, guess we know what that means. And he turns on Firestorm, starts blasting through them. Not actually through them. They're obviously alive. He turns their guns into brooms, and he's like, psh, my dad taught me to be better than this. And then, like, on cue, his dad shows up in a security guard outfit, and he's like, son, calm down. Your head's on fire. And we cut to a little bit later. They're just walking down this planned community outside of the Zither Corporation. It's like, yeah, this all belongs to the Zither thing. They got schools, they got parks, they got everything here. This is our home. And Jason's like, are you kidding me? My dad I look to you as moral standing, dude. And you were bought by the Zither Corporation. It's like, this is good. This is good for us. They are not bad people. The group of people who attacked you earlier, turns out they were rogue agents. That's what the Zither Corporation says, and I believe them wholeheartedly. And Jason's like, is that my car? And he's like, yeah, it's your car. And he's like, oh, God, I got a new car. So then they're just sitting in the kitchen talking, and Director Zither shows up, and she's just laying on all the sweet talk. Like, Jason, look, if every country had just one of you, we wouldn't need armies at all. All those people could just stay home and not put their lives at risk. You are something special, and we're just hoping that we can get that a bit more explored. And Ronnie shows up, and he's like, hey, Jason, you wanna toss the old pigskin around? And Jason's like, what is going on with people, Ronnie? They step outside. What is going on? And Ronnie's like, yeah, look, I know it's weird, but, like, this is actually a pretty good deal. Like, we got full ride scholarships wherever we want to go, apparently, and everything here is all paid for, and all we got to do is just do the occasional, like, PR stunt. Like, it's not actually going to be villainy. We just got to go and, like, fight the occasional fake bad guy for the sake of making the Firestorm program look good. And Jason's like, I don't know, man. They shot our friends. Like, people are dead because of their actions. Like, no. Remember, that wasn't them. They said so. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure. But then Ronnie just straight up was like, look, you're the smart one. I'm not. Whatever you want to do, I'll go with it. And he's like, oh, all right. Well, I guess we could, play along for a while and at least see what they want us to do. And he's like, cool. So they go fly off to do one of those PR stunts. It's at a concert. And there's a single panel here of, like, two characters that get a lot of focus, and I feel like I should know who they are, but I don't. So regardless, we see at the concert they're already there's some terrorists up on stage in what looks to be another Firestorm, pretty much identical to that one that Posar fought in the beginning. And they show up and they're like, all right, well, let's just take him down. Ronnie says he'll take the Firestorm and Jason will take all the terrorist guns. So Ronnie tackles the Firestorm. They fly up into the air. Jason immediately just turns the guns into balloons. And he's like, all right, well, that was easy. But Ronnie's having a harder time. He's not able to keep his own against the Firestorm he's fighting. And apparently he's spouting off a lot of, like, actual terrorist stuff, like the same stuff that the first Firestorm in the first scene was of, you have been against our country for long enough and we're here for some light terrorism. So he blasts down Ronnie out of the sky, and the crowd's all evacuating at this point, obviously. And as the Firestorm stands next to Ronnie and Jason, the terrorist one, he's like, well, there's no better time than now. And he literally self-destructs. He explodes and he goes for Karak, and he suicide bombs. And, the power of a firestorm exploding leaves a giant crater with many deaths in this concert. And he's like, oh, this wasn't a PR stunt. And that's where we leave off on the issue. I like it. I think it's a solid enough thing. It's a big swerve from how we were moving before, where I thought it was just going to be Ronnie and Jason on the run from everybody. Like, now they've got an alliance, an uneasy alliance, but an alliance nonetheless with the Sciver guys, and who knows if they can be trusted. And, like, they just had a massive loss in the name of Firestorm. So it's actual character development going on, and I'm liking where it's moving. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 7. My only real critique is that it feels like everyone bought into this, except for Jason, obviously. But even then, by the end, it feels like everyone bought into this just a bit too quickly. Like, this was overnight. He literally slept for one night, and everyone's like, yeah, this is great. Let's go ahead with them. So I wish there'd just be a bit more skepticism. Maybe there will be later. Maybe that'll be the reveal. But for right now, it's played straight, and I'm not sure how much I like that. So, yeah, 7 for this. Definitely looking forward to seeing how it's going to wrap up. Justice League number 5, written by Geoff Johns, art by Jim Lee. We left off last issue with Darkseid showing up, knocking everybody on their asses, and saying, I am Darkseid. This issue picks up with Flash being the first one to get up. He looks around, sees Darkseid just blowing some fighter jets out of the sky with his eye beams, which I know is called his Omega beams, but they just call them eye beams. Flash freaks out on Darkseid for a second, and then once they actually meet, gazes. He's like, is anybody up yet? Because I'm not exactly good at holding conversation. And Superman blasts through the rubble, and as soon as they're both available, Darkseid fires off another thing of Omega beams, and Flash and Superman just start to outrun it. Flash takes to the streets, Superman takes to the skies, and you see that the beams are still following them individually. They try to make it through, and Flash realizes, okay, got to get it onto a different target. So he finds one of the parademons, he phases through it, and the Omega beam blows up the parademon instead. As Flash is catching his breath, with random, like, civilians or cops or whatever, like, guns trained on Flash, because they're like, who are you? Get away, da-da-da. And Flash is like, dude, just give me a minute. And he looks up and he sees Superman being hit by the Omega beam, and Parademon, as he's falling, catches him out of the sky and takes him away. And Flash is like, all right, they took Superman, and he's going back to the rest of the Justice League, tells them that. And they wonder why it's taken Superman, but the only answer they have is Darkseid, so they're like, all right, let's go ask some questions. So Green Lantern just blindly charges in and says, like, I got this. And he starts trying to attack Darkseid, and literally nothing is doing anything. And he keeps on getting up, and he's like, is that all you got? I got more than that. And he flies back in, and Darkseid just grabs his arm and breaks it and walks away. And Green Lantern's like, that's right, run away. Batman shows up next to Green Lantern and is like, hey, you need to get with the others. And he's like, psh, I can handle this. I don't need you telling me what to do. He's like, your arm is broken, you idiot. And basically what it boils down to is Batman just, like, what are you doing, Green Lantern? Why are you doing this? Who are you trying to prove yourself to? He's like, I ain't trying to prove nothing. And he's like, are you trying to live up to somebody? Like, what are you... Clearly, Green Lantern, we have something in common. And he's like, what are you talking about? We have nothing in common. He's like, we are next to an alien, a man who is fast as lightning, a cyborg, an Atlantean, and an Amazonian. We are the only two normal people here. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is normal coming from the guy wearing a batsuit. He's like, all right, fine, look. And he takes off the mask and takes off the cowl. And he's like, my name is Bruce Wayne. When I was young, my parents were murdered in front of me, and I have been hunting criminals ever since. And Green Lantern's like, who the hell is Bruce Wayne? And then Batman continues like, this is bigger than my hunt on crime. This is the end of the world. We need to start putting other people before our own little petty stuff. So go back to the group, give them an inspirational speech like I just gave you. I'm going to go and do my own thing. And Green Lantern's like, wait, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm going to get Superman. And he puts his hands up, a parademon sees him, and he swoops up Batman. Green Lantern's like, all right, well, I guess I could do that. goes back to the Justice League and tries to rile them up a little bit. He's like, okay, so we gotta hit him where it hurts, and we gotta make some plans. And Flash is like, what are you talking about, dude? He's like, all right, look, the eye beams. They chase after people, right? And Wonder Woman's like, so you're saying that we blind him? Down. So they are all planning to go in, and Cyborg's like, I'm not really one of you guys. And Green Lantern's like, well, do you want to stay here? And he's like, no, I'm coming with you. So they all fly off, ready to attack Darkseid. And we cut to Bruce after he lands wherever the parademons were taking him. He takes out the parademon that was carrying him. And he comes across another like glowing doorway. And as he goes through it, he comes through hell. Literally hell. Fire pits and burning demons. And it's the apocalypse fire pits, but it's hell. And Batman just goes, this wasn't part of the plan. And that's where we leave off the issue. This was a really fast issue, all things considered. There wasn't a whole lot to it. The big reveal, though, of course, that Batman reveals himself to Green Lantern. A lot of character development right there in a very brief period of time, and I'm not entirely sure how earned it was, but it feels good. Like, it's a good moment to have of... Because everything that we know about Batman is I work alone, and, you don't need to know who I am, and da-da-da-da-da. And taking this time to just be like, this is so much bigger than us. My identity literally doesn't matter. And he just goes in completely maskless like the entire way. Like, he doesn't put the cowl back on when he's done. He just goes as Bruce Wayne in a bat shirt for the rest of it. So, no, I'm definitely down with this issue. Superman being taken, obviously, Superman's kind of a necessary muscle power, so it makes sense that Batman would want to go save him, even just for winning the day reasons, even if it wasn't, because Superman's part of the team and Ohana means family or whatever you want to say here. So overall, though, I'm going to give this one a 7.5. I think it's very well done. The art is, I don't want to say flawless because, it's obviously up to taste, but the only issues I really have with it are something about Green Lantern's face still. I think I said that in like issue 1, is there was something bothering me about his face. It's still here. I can't place it inherently. I think it's something to do with the nose, but I couldn't tell you. But overall, though, fantastic issue. And this only collects issues 1 through 6, so see how it wraps up next month. The Savage Hawkman, number 5, written by Tony S. Daniel and James Bonny, art by Philip Tan. We left off last issue with the end of the Maleficus arc, or whatever the heck his name was. I've already forgotten it. But it ended off with Hawkman seeing zombies walking around. This issue picks up right there from where he left off, where he's walking down the street with Emma, and he just sees everyone around him as the undead. And he starts freaking out a little bit. He realizes, okay, if Emma isn't upset, then I must be hallucinating. This all has to be in my head. But despite it being in his head, his nth metal armor starts coming out to protect him. And he's like, oh, okay, can't have this happening. So he starts pulling away from Emma. But as soon as it stops. He sees everybody back as normal. And he's like, okay, all right, the nth metal's gone. Okay, we're good. But I gotta go. And he just runs away from Emma. He heads down the alley and he turns into Hawkman and he flies away thinking like, all right, is nth metal toxic? Is it in my body? Is it going to treat it like mercury and I'm just going to go crazy? Oh, I hope that's not the case. So then we cut to Greenwich Village, Digby's Rare Book Emporium. We're following Digby as he's just sitting around humming to himself. And then this scary voice speaks out, calling for him. And he's like, hello, hi, I'd like to get a book. And Digby's like, what the hell? How'd you even get in here? And it turns out it's some ancient book of symbols and hieroglyphs that's just like gibberish. But the person, the scary voice is like, oh, I can interpret a segment or two of this, but I need it deciphered. Please help me find the Mortis Orb, Mr. Digby. Your life depends on it, as he starts strangling the guy. Honestly, I feel bad for Digby here, but regardless, cut over to Hawkman. He's flying back to his apartment. And he lands, he gets all the nth metal off. He has a weird moment where he just talks to the pigeons. Okay? And as he steps in, there's this character, giant mohawk, tan skin, named Singh. We're treating him as if he's been a thing, been a character this whole time. I don't remember him at all. I feel like I'm not, but anyway, he walks into his apartment and sings there. And he's like, hey, this girl was calling for you. Mind if I call her up? She was a total babe. And he's like, not your type, Sing. Get out of here. And then he just leaves as easy as he came. Phone rings. It's Professor Ziegler. And Carter Hall has a job from Ziegler. Cut back to the book emporium, and Digby's bowing at the knees of whoever this guy is, and he's like, I did as you asked. What happens next, master? And he's like, good. Oh, once things go our way, you will be finally making a difference, Mr. Digby. And he's like, oh, I won't let you down, master. Again, not clear as to who this guy is. Cut back to Ziegler. Carter walks in, and he's like, hey, is that the book you want me to check out? And he's like, yeah, totally. By the way, Emma said that you were acting weird. You all good? And he's like, yeah, totally. Just have a lot on my mind. So what's the book about? And apparently he thinks that it's some inspiration for H.P. Lovecraft's Necronomicon, but they're getting a huge cash amount if they can decrypt it. So, hey, worth a shot, right? And as soon as he cracks open the book, he thinks like, oh, this is a bunch of gibber. What? And he immediately sees this whole story of an ancient warlock who's able to wield weapons against like these apparitions that can phase between two different planes of existence, and he uses this thing called the Mortis Orb, which allowed the warlocks to vanquish the dead. And now it's just away. It's just lost to time. It was given to some stranger to take far away, and now it's just gone. And Hawkman's like, okay, this book is dangerous, and I'm going to check it out at home. Bye. But before he leaves, he gets the name of the guy who left it, which is Jim Craddock. And then we go back to Singh, who I guess is now just the guy at the computer. And he did the whole history check on Jim Craddock, who was a guy from the 1800s who came to America and met his fate at the end of a rope. And his nickname was Gentleman Jim. But the guy who actually dropped off the book was a guy named Digby, Darius Digby, who runs the bookshop, as we clearly know. And as they're going through all this, Carter's looking at the window, and he just sees all these faces in it, and the window starts to crack. So he dives onto Singh to protect him from the zombies or whatever, and then he looks back up, and the window's totally fine. And he's like, crap, I'm going crazy. Dang it. And Singh's like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, sorry, gotta go. Gonna go find Digby. So he flies off as Hawkman, lands at the bookstore, and just crashes in, and he's like, hey, Digby, me and you were going to talk. What do you know about this book? And he's like, look, I don't know nothing about that book. I dropped it off, but I literally know nothing about it. Man, why are you attacking me? And Hawkman's like, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, Digby. He's like, all I know is that guy wanted me to do it. The gentleman, he just calls him the gentleman. He wants me to crack it, and he's going to kill me if he doesn't get his dead hands on the Mortis Orb. And at that moment, Digby looks even more terrified than before, and he realizes he's not terrified of Hawkman, he's terrified of something behind Hawkman. And he turns around and sees these apparitions, these deadly figures. And as he starts to fight them, his mace just goes right through the apparition. But the apparition does manage to get a swipe on Hawkman, and he's bleeding. And he's like, thank God, I felt that, and I'm bleeding. So that must mean I'm not crazy. Whew, that's good. Anyway, let's go ahead and try to fight some ghosts. So as he's ready to start fighting against them, he's like, well, I can't hit you with my mace, so we'll see how this is going to work. But as he's about to swing, the gentleman steps in front, and he's like, oh, don't be in such a rush, Hawkman. Being dead lasts a very long time. Ha ha. So, yeah, that's where we leave with the Gentleman Ghost. It's Gentleman Ghost. I'm like 98% sure it's Gentleman Ghost, who is a recurring DC character, I guess, prior to New 52, but now he's just the Gentleman. It's an interesting turn after the last one. The last one was so mired in sci-fi. For this one to go more in terms of sorcery and magic, it just feels a little bit strange of a turn, but if that's the way we want to go, I'm not opposed to it, so long as it's a good story being told. I'm not entirely sure that the link between seeing these apparitions and the zombie stuff is completely explained. Also, why Hawkman's seeing it at all. I'm going to assume nth metal, because everything is just nth metal, but no, it's okay. It's a fine thing. Art-wise, it's the same as it was before. Some of the characters' faces are really starting to be like, is that really what we're doing here? Like, they're fine when they're in costume, but as soon as it's just the blank character face, Carter looks really disproportionate in a lot of ways. I don't know how to explain it. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 6.5. I think it's good, but there's just a bit lacking right now, particularly in terms of how quickly this story was just thrown into and now we have Gentleman Ghost and Digby and Sing and okay. So yeah, 6.5. We'll see where it goes from here. Possibly up, possibly down. I don't know. All-Star Western number 5, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Moritat. We left off last issue with Dr. Arkham and Jonah Hex going down into some mines inside of a cave in order to free some children who are working against their will. And Dr. Arkham gets held at gunpoint by this really huge, scary-looking dude. Also, everyone here is British for some reason. I don't know. So, issue picks up exactly where it left off. Arkham's being held at gunpoint, and guy's telling him to stand down. Arkham's telling him to stand down, and Jonah's like, do it. I don't care about Arkham. Go for it. But as he's distracted, one of the guys on the platform that he's standing on knocks out the leg of the platform and causes Jonah to tumble down where they can get the jump on him. They get him grabbed, take away his guns, and the big guy's like, well, we're going to go ahead and just take care of you the old-fashioned way, and we're going to throw you down into a tunnel that is actually just a raging river. So, bye. So they do that, and they bring him over there, and they give him, some last words, and then toss him in. And it's told from Arkham's perspective of just the swirling and how he's unable to swim or catch his breath or anything like that. But we see Jonah manage to grab a hold of Arkham. He reaches for his axe tomahawk in his waist, hip belt, whatever you want to call it, and get a grip inside of the edge of this cliff that they're careening down, like it's a waterfall, which slows their descent just enough to land on an outjetting rock. And Hex has got a hold on Arkham, and he's trying to pull him up, but Arkham is just complaining and whining and quite literally, quote, I fear I've soiled myself. So finally Arkham gets pulled up onto the rock, and apparently the art doesn't really sell this, and I am going to knock points on this, but apparently it is pitch black, and they can't see a thing. So they get pulled up onto the rock, and somehow, despite the fact they were completely underwater, Hex has some dry matches. They try lighting it, and Hex looks around as Arkham is just constantly complaining this whole time. And as Hex is looking around trying to find a way out, he just eventually just stops, lights another match, lights a cigarette with it, and he's like, yeah, we're trapped here. And Hex is freaking out, or Arkham's freaking out on Hex. He's like, what do you mean we're trapped? I always thought you wouldn't give up and you would find a way out. No, you're nothing but a letdown this whole time. Oh, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. And as he's complaining and whining, there's this loud scream of Kia throughout the caves, and they're wondering what it is, and they see some torchlight up above, and they realize that it is some sort of old tribe or something, an uncontacted people. Arkham says that they are the lost tribe of the Miyajani, who apparently they filed their teeth down, and they just start throwing harpoons and spears and attacking them on this rock. And Arkham's useless still, but Hex starts throwing around, starts fighting them and using their own weapons against them, knocking them off of the rock that they're standing on. And as he finally gets, I assume, all of them defeated, he grabs one of the torches that was left on the ground, and then, again, knocking off points here, just walks up a staircase. I guess they made it seem that they needed the torch in order to see it, but it's just a staircase. It's just there. I don't know. It came out of nowhere, and they don't explain it either. But either way, they make their way across a rickety bridge and whatnot, and they reach this just impassable wall, just straight up. But there are tiny little notches in it, and Hex is like, we're going to have to climb. So they climb, and Arkham's like, we've been climbing for forever, and I don't even see the bottom anymore. What are we doing? Finally, they reach the top, and Arkham's freaking out. He's like, oh my god, my arms are numb. I'm never going on another adventure with you again. And Hex is like, that's fine with me. But they hear another loud squeal in the cave, and they're like, okay, now what? And he holds up the torch, and he sees a giant bat descending upon them. And his ending line is, "Damn it, I hate Gotham." And that's where we leave off. That's the cliffhanger. So, points off. Point off number 1. Where were those stairs from? Why couldn't he find those before? Second point, in them trying to say they're in pitch black, it honestly looks brighter than like any other scene. Like, there are scenes in this book that take place outside at night when there's still just ambient lighting, and they look dark. You can tell they take place at night. This one takes place in a cave, a pitch black cave, and it looks the exact same as any day scene. That's bad for art. I don't... Like, they tell me, oh, I can't see a thing, while meanwhile it's like, really? It's actually darker when they light up the match because they have to darken the rest of the scene to show the match is lit. Like, just do that darkness for the whole thing. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but it really, like, I had to read that page a couple times where I'm like, oh, right, they can't see. All right, I guess. And honestly, that leads straight into the stereo thing. So, in terms of the story itself, this is just a little thing of, oh, however will they get out of this mess? And it's just more or less to pad the story out, but I don't mind it story-wise, but those two things really bother me enough that I'm going to deduct some points for that. So overall, I'm going to give this one 5.5, honestly. For a book that I have been enjoying the art of, especially with how stylistically it fits, it just feels like such a letdown that they couldn't bother to make it dark. It's a gritty book. How do you not make a gritty book dark? So... yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the cliffhanger. A giant bat, that sounds cool. Especially because I think the cover says this is the Bat Cave, so got to tie it into Batman somehow. Blackhawks, number 5, written by Mike Costa, art by, the book says Cafu, but my online sources say Carlos Urbano, so... yeah, I don't know. Trust the book, probably. Last issue we left off with Kanoichi and Titus fighting and beating each other up in the Blackhawks place, ultimately stopping Titus from whatever he was doing. Meanwhile, Canada and Wildman escape the Machine City and head out into space. This issue is pretty much entirely Canada and Wildman. Starts off with Wildman confessing, like, hey, look, Canada, Kanoichi and I have had a thing going on, and I want to tell you because, and he's like, nope, I'm going to stop you right there because that door over there, this place is windowless. We have no idea what's out there, but that door over there, we need to open up and see if there's oxygen outside. And if you start unloading your deep, dark secrets on me, that's only going to jinx us. And he's like, well, I got to tell somebody. He's like, nope, I'm opening the door. So he opens up the door, and outside is a full-on just space station looking down on Earth. Full oxygen. They're totally fine. They got some anti-gravity because of centrifugal force, and they're just looking down on Earth. And immediately they get some watchdogs called on them, literal dogs, talking ones, of course, and they start attacking, or coming after them to attack them. But it doesn't take much for these two to overpower the dogs and take them out. So they approach a computer, a big terminal that's there, and Wildman starts asking Canada, like, hey, how did you know it would bring us up here? And he's like, I didn't know, but space has a smell to it, like a very distinct smell of fried steak and molten metal, and that ship that I passed by, like an issue or two ago, had that smell on it. So I figured it could probably get us there on its own with how advanced the society is, so just went ahead and took a shot in the dark. And anyway, now we're at a computer. This is your department. So we cut back real quick to the base, the Blackhawks base, the Erie, and basically they're like, man, that fight from last issue really tore this place up. It's going to take weeks to clean this up. And Lincoln's like, nah, I'll get it done in like 5 days. Be nothing. And Lady Blackhawk's like, well, all right, I'd like to see. Oh, hold on, getting a call. And it's Wildman up top. He confirms his identity, and it's like, yeah, no, we're up in orbit. Do you have any way to come get us? And Lincoln's like, no, actually, we don't have anything that can break the thermosphere. How do you think this is going to work? And he's like, I don't know. You have the UN behind us now. Maybe we can get some. And then the call gets interrupted by the mother mind thing, and it scrambles the communications. And basically, Mother Mind's like, I am so disappointed in you. You know, I wanted to fold you into our network, but Now I turned off the oxygen, and I turned off the heating, and I turned off the anti-gravity, and I got you out of orbit. So you're going to die one way or another. Okay. So as basically there's like, okay, but if you want to kill us, why not just kill us? You could just open up the airlock and kill us. And he's like, because I'm still going to offer you a choice. You can either, explode and walk out the vacuum if you want, and I can't stop you there. Or if you wait until that last minute when you're about to crash down, I'm going to flood this place with the nanosites, I think they're called, and you will maybe not completely, but mostly have your consciousness joined in with us. So you'll still live on in some way, shape, or form. Okay, cool, got it? And immediately, Wildman starts laughing, and Mother Mind's like, excuse me? What was that? And he's like, oh, nothing. I just was reacting inappropriately because I'm faced with an impossible choice. Sorry. So she shuts off as they make their choice as to what to do. And Wildman's like, okay, I figured out what this satellite does. You remember that explosion that we couldn't figure out what the cause of the explosion was, like 3 issues ago? This was it. Turns out this place, instead of like a deadly space laser, instead is dropping, it's like a harpoon launcher. It's dropping tungsten rods that reach like Mach 10 by the time they hit the Earth. And as such, it causes a massive explosion with like no trace or energy. So because they have those weapons on board here, and because I left my high-tech glasses back at their city, I can lock on to their coordinates, upload their coordinates to this computer, and bomb them with their own bombs. And immediately he's like, all right, we've got a limited window. Let's do this right now. And Canada stops and he's like, wait a minute, hold on. Are we just going to obliterate an entire city of intelligent like minds? And he's like, you do understand that they're going to spread like a virus and consume all of humanity, right? And he's like, right. But like, do we have any right to say who we are committing like genocide against these people? And it's like, I get where you're coming from, Canada, really do, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. So the mother pops back up and she's like, all right, so what's your choice? He's like, yeah, we got an answer. Beep, presses the button, drops an orbital bomb pretty much. And Mother is very upset about that, but it doesn't seem to matter because there is a massive explosion in Machine City. The comm shut down, and Canada's immediately like, that wasn't right. That was morally gray, possibly black. And Wildman's like, look, we had to do our job. Anyway, been an honor serving with you. We're going to die here now. And Canada's like, well, hold on. You can talk to them again, right? And he's like, yeah, but I mean, we're crashing down to Earth. Not a lot they can do. He's like, well, we can get out of orbit now. And I'm a good pilot. So he comes up with this plan where they're going to basically do the thing from Interstellar with like matching the speed of the crashing space station with their own jet, and then they're going to like just repel across it. I say that it takes 3 pages to happen, but like it's a good action scene. It's a good like tense moment there. So they get back on the ship and they get back to Blackhawks base. The first caption box here is I peed myself because it's Wildman talking to Kanoichi on a hospital bed, and she's heavily sedated, but he still tells her that he's going to see her tomorrow and is glad that they both made it out of this. And as he leaves, the lights turn off, and we see that because of the nanosites inside of her, the mother mind is still able to communicate through her, and she's going to be the new pawn or whatever. And that's where we leave off. Solid. It's a good book. I really like that issue, possibly more than any of the Titus stuff that came before it, honestly. It just feels like a tight little story of, okay, we are trapped in space, and there's a machine who is taking us out of orbit. How do we deal with this immediately? And they kept it tight. They kept it nice and packed. They built off of what we established before. It's very well done. Art-wise, pretty stock standard. Nothing's really standing out as incredible. But it's, it's well done. I can tell each character is each character. So no problems there. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 7. I think it's very well done, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Blackhawks continues. Voodoo number 5, written by Joshua Williamson, art by Sami Basri. We left off last issue with Voodoo once again escaping from Agent Fallon and gang, and also some dude who is a Damonite attacking some random guy for information. This issue picks up with a archaeological dig in the Midwest America. A couple guys just standing guard, not paying any attention. Voodoo comes in, slashes their throats, and just makes their way into the dig site. She monologues about, like, oh, they may not have deserved death on their own, but humans as a whole, they're bad news. So she dives down into the dig site, and it's apparently a giant Daemonite battleship that crashed here forever ago, and it was actually what delivered her and the other Daemonite half-breeds, which is, I guess, what she is, onto Earth to complete their mission. So she goes towards it. It recognizes her presence, starts to boot up, and she's like, well, they're going to notice that pretty soon, so I got to move fast. So as soon as she enters, though, the guy who killed the guy from the last issue, the actual Daemonite, he shows up there, and he's like, hey, you're tough to find, but I knew you'd come here eventually, so hi, how's it going? And she tries reading his mind. His thoughts are kind of cloudy, but she lays on the voodoo charm, and he's like, I know what you're doing. I'm one of you. I'm a Daemonite, so no. And she's impressed for a moment there, but she's like, okay, well, cool. So my identity was compromised, but I got everything I needed, all the information on the Justice League, which is apparently what my mission was. So I'm here to upload it, and then we're going to go. And basically, he's just like, okay, yeah, sounds good, but I'm actually going to kill you. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? We're on the same side. You're a traitor. And she's like, no. See, you're a half-breed, and I'm a full-blood. I'm like a Daemonite supremacist thing going on here, and you're an abomination, so we need to kill you. And Voodoo's like, all right, well, that's not going to happen. So she turns into her green skin formed, and they start fighting. We go to a military base where Fallon's at. She's being released, I guess you could say, because of her anger problems that are getting in the way of Voodoo being caught. She actually laments in here that she should have joined the Blackhawks. So, call out to other books. But apparently she was part of a team called the Black Razors before she joined into the FBI. And that's where she picked up a bunch of training. So anyway, Blackjack walks in and is like, you were a badass member of the Black Razors, and now you're just calling it quits? Psh, that's not the person I knew. And she's like, yeah, well, Voodoo got by you too, so what does that tell you about you? He's like, fair enough. And he blows up her box of all of her stuff. And he's just like, we let that alien get past us 4 times. What are we going to do about it? And she's like, nothing. I'm let go. What do you want? Unless... And then she immediately gets Blackjack in the car and is like, all right, we got to go. Right now. We're in a rush. Cut back to the fight. Daemonite's firing off some gunshots. And Voodoo slashes open his human skin sack, whatever you want to call it, thus showing the big blue alien that was hidden inside. And basically she realizes that she doesn't have the amount of power needed to defeat him, per se, so she needs to tap into his brain, use the telepathy, and get a weakness out of him. So she really goes for it, she dives in, and she does this weird like mind meld thing going on, where he gets some of her stuff and she gets some of his stuff. We do happen to see Grifter here, along with the Stormwatch Association, being viewed from behind. So maybe one of the members is a Daemonite. And then a baby in a vat. I don't know what that one is. And then just some memories of the books that we've already seen. So this link is broken, and the Daemon's like, whoa, okay, nobody should be able to do that. Not even a half-breed. What's going on here? And she's like, oh, but I did it. And now I'm in your head, and I know all your weakness. And, okay, that took a lot of energy out of me. All right, I'm down. I'm out. And as the Daemonite is about to fire the gun at her to be like, all right, this is what you filthy half-breeds get. She gets one last jump on him and literally bites his head off. And she's like, all right, well, that solves that. Time to complete my mission. So she walks over with the USB drive. It gets absorbed by the computer. She copies over all the files for Mission Wonder Woman, Mission Superman, Mission Batman, Green Lantern, and Cyborg. But then she sees off to the side one that's Mission Voodoo. And she's like, well, hold on now. What's this? And she checks it out. Meanwhile, we cut back to Fallon and Blackjack running into this underground facility as fast as they can because they're in some sort of rush because the prisoner is scheduled for execution and they're hoping they can get there before then. And both of them come to the realization or whatever that Voodoo is actually a clone. And Fallon, like the military group, whatever, has the original or possibly the clone. I don't know how we're in place, but has a version of Voodoo trapped underground and is, I guess, scheduled for execution. So Fallon says that's how they knew about aliens in the first place. So that's a reveal. I didn't expect clones. That one caught me off guard. Gotta admit. It's a good issue. I genuinely think it's a solid thing. It establishes some more power for Voodoo. She's able to take on a full Damonite, and Fallon gets the reveal of she's actually a clone. I mean, clones can be iffy. Clones can be tacky sometimes, especially in comics. But I don't know. I'm liking this book enough, and I'm liking the mysteries it sets up that I'm down to see where it goes from here. I'm down to see okay, what's up with the clone thing? Because we've more or less resolved all the other mysteries that Voodoo had going on for her. So now it's just a matter of, okay, now what's the clone thing about? And I'm down for it. So yeah, I'm going to give this one a 7. I think it's a good read. The art is fantastic. It's always been very well done. Not more to really say about it. Just continuing a already solid series that I frankly brushed under the rug when I first heard about it. So yeah, Voodoo, who'da thunk? Teen Titans number 5, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Brett Booth. We last left off with Wonder Girl facing down against Superboy and barely holding her own as the Teen Titans finally show up. This issue picks up pretty much the same spot. Robin is starting to order out commands, but before he can do anything, Superboy's like, hey, by the way, I have tactile telekinesis and I'm able to just move the entire road underneath your feet. My name's Superboy, what you gonna do about it? And immediately the team just falls apart. Kid Flash starts off, he runs off on his own. He's like, I'm not a team player. I'm just gonna go ahead and run in there and do my thing. And he just runs in and starts punching Superboy at like super speed. But of course, with every punch, he makes a connection with Superboy. Therefore, he's able to use his telekinesis on him. And Superboy uses it to speed up Kid Flash to like beyond his limits, and they're not sure how they're going to stop him. Wonder Girl gets up and it's like, oh, don't worry, I'll stop him. And Red Robin's like, whoa, hold on, if you try to grab him, you're going to rip off your arm. And she's like, yeah, I know. And she kicks him out of like the circle that he's running in, and he just goes flying. Solstice goes to make the catch as Superboy grabs Wonder Girl and just slams her head into the concrete. And then it's Bunker's turn. Bunker grabs Superboy by the head with big purple rock gloves, I guess is the best way to describe it. And Superboy's like, okay, well, you're annoying. Throws him as far as he can, but then Bunker makes I guess the best way to call it is a brick trampoline, because he can control the density of it, I guess. So he uses that to bounce back and punch Superboy in the face. So, yeah. Meanwhile, it cuts to Kid Flash, who is now falling on top of I want to say, like, aircraft carrier that happens to be in the Hudson River, or maybe it's just some general other ship, but it looks like an aircraft carrier. And as he's about to land, just like a 15-year-old boy who would just go splat on the pavement, instead, Solstice comes in, grabs Kid Flash, and then slices the ship in two with her powers so that they can land safely in the water. And immediately the people on deck are like, all right, abandon ship, these goddamn metas are ruining everything. So then we cut back to Bunker and Superboy. He's just wailing on Superboy, and Superboy's like, all right, well, I've had enough of this. And he takes a bunch of the ground underneath him and just slams it up into Bunker's face. Bunker gets sat down and he's like, all right, well, that's what happens when you try to mess with Superboy. None of you are a threat for me. And then he gets on his little headset earpiece thing. He's like, hey, guys from nowhere, my bosses, what's with all the other people? You didn't say this was going to be happening. And we get a glimpse into the mobile facility of nowhere, which is just a hot potato truck with a bunch of screens inside of it. And people inside are like, hey, Superboy's asking for backup, considering that there's a whole bunch of other superpowered people there. Should we send it? And Templar, his boss, is like, no, Superboy should be able to fight on his own. Wonder Girl is the objective, blah, blah, blah. So then Superboy's like, all right, so what's up now? Red Robin comes in, and he's like, hey, do you know who you're fighting for? Like, these nowhere guys, and this whole time he's beating up Superboy just casually. And he's like, your bosses are capturing meta superheroes and stuff like that and, like, using them. How do you sleep at night? And he's like, that's not my problem. I'm just doing what I'm told. And he says, like, oh, yeah, you're just following orders? Yeah. You think they're going to think twice about throwing you away once you've done everything, once you're done with your being useful to them? And he makes the connection of, like, okay, his powers are mental-based, so I just have to keep him thinking. That's the whole goal here. And basically, he just tries to talk to him and just be like, look, I'm not going to let up because I will do anything to save those teenagers that Nowhere is captured. And Superboy's like, we know you're not superpowered. You can just leave. We don't actually care about you at all. And he's like, that's never going to happen. So then Superboy uses his telekinesis to activate all of the electronics in Red Robin's suit and basically fries him. So that happened. Wonder Girl lands a lasso around him, and he immediately uses that to dive down deep into a subway underneath the ground, with Wonder Girl basically being stuck along for the ride. So once she's pummeled by the earth sufficiently, and then he brings her back up to the surface, and it's just like, all right, well, guess we're done here. But then Solstice arrives back again, and he's like, hey, Solstice, right? So you're not just going to let me leave with your friend, are you? And she's like, no, look, here's the thing. Nowhere has really messed me up, like really bad. And I just want you to know that the Dark Harvest is coming. The culling, that's the thing we're going to be doing. And despite everything and they've told you about just merely wanting to study them, they are doing terrible things to these metahumans that you're capturing. And the blood will be on your hands. And Superboy's like, huh, all right. Well, for some reason that made a connection. So I'll try not to be such a dick. So he flies off to the mobile unit that is over by the river, I guess. And he picks it up and drops it in the river. And he's like, I don't know what are lies and what are half-truths, but I'm coming for answers, and you better be ready for it. So then we just leave with Superboy flying off, and the entirety of the Teen Titans just all crumpled to the ground. By the way, he headbutted Solstice into submission. That happened. So yeah, that's the issue. Throughout both this and Superboy, we have been leading to this confrontation of the Teen Titans versus Superboy, and this was it. This was the thing, and it just feels like such a major letdown. I am so disappointed in how this was like a nothing. Like, honest to God, this felt completely just like, okay, he beat them all up, but he learned the power of friendship, I guess. And now he might not be as evil. Like, what? That's it? That's what... This should have been like... This should have been the capper. We still have issues left in this trade. This wasn't the capper. We're doing more after this. Oh, God. It just doesn't feel good. I don't know. Writing-wise, at least, like... Kid Flash is still obnoxious, but everyone else at least tones it down a little bit. A tiny bit. Art-wise, I don't have a problem with it that bad. A couple weird faces, but everyone's more or less okay. I'm going to give this a 4.5. It's such a letdown because literally, I'm pretty sure from like issue 1, we've been setting up of Superboy in Teen Titans. And in Superboy, we've been setting up to the Teen Titans for Teen Titans. It's just, it's so annoying that this is what it's come to. I mean, sure, he's going to come back and join the team, judging by how he's on the freaking cover of the trade. But like, that was the confrontation? Seriously? I, Vampire, number 5, written by Joshua Hale Fialkov, art by Andrea Sorrentino. Left off last issue with a kind of little side story of Tig's father being killed at the hands of Andrew, and they're on their way to Gotham still. This issue picks up in Gotham. A woman is being accosted by a few men. A police officer shows up and pulls out his gun towards them. It's revealed that they are vampires, and they attack the police officer. Also, there's a whole narration over the top by Tig, basically saying, like, you know, my father became a vampire, my mother helped save us, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Just going through her entire backstory of why she hates vampires so much. And especially, she does hate, or at least she wants to kill Andrew. And even if he's good, he's still a vampire and deserves to die. Then we cut to the GCPD officer who is arresting these guys who are accosting the woman. And they're just there voluntarily of their own volition. And as they're questioned, like, you're bringing these guys in without cuffs? And it's like, yeah, they're all here on their own. And then they all start laughing and their fangs are shown. And the police officers also turn into a vampire. So then we cut to a bridge where the gang is driving over, and we see that Tig is actually writing all of this in her journal, and I keep forgetting his name, but the guy who's with them, I'll say it when I remember it. He's like, hey, so you're writing in a journal. That's cool. I used to do that too, hoping I could remember something about vampires, like, you know, figure something out about them. But in the end, the journal only made it worse because I was paralyzed with fear and realizing, and Andrew's like, dude, shut up. You're not helping. So then all these GCPD cars pass by them, and Andrew, of course, realizes that it must be Mary. And we see that this train arrived into Gotham, and it has just been emptied. There's no one alive left on the truck. There is a bunch of blood and stuff like that, though. And people are already thinking, like, in the crowds, like, no, I'm hearing that it's vampires. I think vampires are a thing. So Andrew and the gang, they get up there and they're like, all right, Andrew's going to go take a look. He kind of like vapors away. And Tig just doubles down on her, saying like, hey, I know Andrew's a good guy, but I'm totally going to kill him. I'm looking forward to that. So Andrew arrives at the train, and as he's looking for clues as to what could happen, he gets a batarang in the hand. And who's standing there? But of course, Batman, saying, what did you do with these people on the train? And Andrew's like, it wasn't me. And Batman tackles him in. And he's like, tell me where they are. Andrew vapors around him and is just like, I'm telling you, it wasn't me. I don't want to fight you. Batman pulls out some flash powder. It disorients Andrew long enough that Batman can get the drop on him. And he's like, how did you do this? Where are the people on the train? And what exactly are you? And Andrew starts to pull out a little bit of his vampire strength. Gets a little bit angry, kicks Batman away, but he's like, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. I'm trying to figure this out because I know who did this. And he offers a hand to Batman. Some people come down, hearing the commotion, and as he turns to Batman, telling him that they got to get out of there, Batman's already gone, and Andrew is, of course, impressed. So a cop's talking to the Tig and the other guy I'm forgetting the name of, and they're just like, yeah, no, nobody was there. It's the weirdest thing. So Andrew shows up and he's like, all right, sorry to trouble you officers. We got to go now. And Andrew recounts how he, quote unquote, made a friend as Batman's standing off getting facial recognition on them so he can run it through the system. So apparently Andrew has this mental link with Mary that he can figure out like where she's moving to, and he can trace it down to the Gotham courthouse, which is apparently completely empty and abandoned. One guy tries to stop them, and Andrew uses his vampire charm to get them past. And as they go into the courthouse, they realize, oh, right, these old courthouses used to have all these cells down beneath. That's probably where they're keeping these freshly turned vampires so they don't, like, you know, run amok and cause havoc while they're trying to make all their plans and whatnot. So they're probably underground. Batman shows up as they're making their way down into the barracks, and John, that's his name, John, gets in the middle, and he's like, whoa, hold on, Batman. This isn't what you think. Andrew's not the monster, because, of course, Batman did his research and realized that Andrew has been alive for many hundreds of years. And Tig gets behind Batman. He's like, no, he's totally a monster. Shoot him in the head. In fact, let me shoot him in the head. I'll double shoot him in the head. So then John gets in the middle, just trying to slow this up. Batman thinks that John is being charmed, and he's like, no, I'm not. I'm totally good. I'm telling you, though, he's good. Because if he wasn't, wouldn't he have already killed you if he was the monster that you thought he was? And Batman accepts that. They work together for now, just to at least solve this mystery. And they take the elevator down to the underground holding cells. Andrew makes a quip about him liking his cape. So as they make their way down, Tig recounts more about how she remembers hearing her mother die, being torn limb from limbs, because they hunted down so many vampires together that they wouldn't dare turn them into vampires. And as they arrive at the bottom, just arms and gnashing teeth all start approaching into the cells. Tig starts opening the doors as Andrew's like, no, don't do that, Tig. But their voice from the back says stop, and we see that it's Mary, who's very happy to show her new family to Andrew. And that's where we leave off, with Batman and gang facing down the Horde along with Mary. I mean, I kind of just want to stop gushing over this series because I do it every single issue, but like, yes. Especially because every series, it seems like, has that issue where it's crossing over with Batman. Because it's like, oh, this issue featuring Batman. This one I feel does it the best, you know? It's just like, it doesn't rely too heavily on the fact that Batman's here. He's literally just a guy who's like far underpowered considering all this. But they do still make him Batman, you know? He feels like Batman here. I don't know. I personally, I like the way that they handled this particular issue, even if it is just there's no reason for Batman to be a part of this right now, but he is here and I'm okay with how they handled it. I'm really liking how Tig isn't just like, oh yeah, no, you're one of the cool vampires. She's like, no, I will kill you too. Absolutely, that's going to happen. So, yeah, no, I'm all in on this. Art, of course, beautiful. Sorrentino kills it constantly. I'm not sure how I feel about Mary showing up again, like, so soon. I feel like this should have been more of a chase, but we do only have one issue left in the trade, so I guess maybe this could be the climax, but I don't know. I kind of want to see this continue on, but hey, that's just me. Overall, I'm giving this one an 8, mainly for the way that they handle Batman, because I've seen it done poorly so many times over the course of this show. I am happy that this is a way of them handling the Batman crossover decently. And, of course, the art elevates it by 2 points on its own. So, yep, 8 for this. Can't wait to see how it ends, at least for this trade. Justice League Dark number 5, written by Peter Milligan, art by Mikkel Janin. We left off last issue with Deadman and June having a portal open up. They both tried to go through it. Only Deadman made it through, and June was left to fight against the forces of Enchantress. This issue picks up with a bunch of crazy stuff going on in the world. I'm not going to recount it all, but it does mention Resurrection Man, Frankenstein and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Animal Man, a.k.a. all the other things with the Dark label on it. So good to see that brand recognition going on. So anyway, we pick up with June. She's running down from Enchantress, and she comes across Constantine, who I guess is just there. He drew a circle where, nothing can get in, nothing can hurt them. She dives inside, and they start to talk because John has a bunch of questions for her. We go back to Deadman, who was called by Shade, but also on the beckon on the call of Xanadu. And basically she's like, oh, I brought you here because you're needed for some big magical thing. And Deadman essentially is just like, no, June's in trouble, and you made me just leave her there because apparently the metador created was configured for their own specific psychic coordinates, blah, blah, blah. So Deadman just leaves. He got here and now he's gone again to go help June. So it's Zatanna, Shade, and Xanadu, and they're like, all right, I guess it's just us. We got to deal with Enchantress. So Shade tells Zatanna to remember the place when she fought Enchantress before, and so he makes a door based off of those feelings, and they arrive back at that weird little cabin with a storm of rotten teeth that could be poisonous, and Shade's trying to fight it off. But within the storm, he sees Kathy, that woman that he loves and like keeps recreating every once in a while. And both Zatanna and Xanadu are like, dude, clearly that's not real. Clearly that is all Enchantress's thing. Like, ignore that and help us fight off this storm of rotten teeth. And he's just like, what is real? What is unreal? What does that really matter to us? And Zatanna's like, all right, I'll cast a spell on him. And she casts a spell of, backward spell of shade. Ignore her. Doesn't work. And so she's like, all right, well, I'm going to show you what real really is. And she gives him a big smooch on the lips. And she's like, that was real. The taste of my lips on yours, focus on that, because that's what's real. And Shade was like, Kathy's gone. He's like, she was never here. Fine, whatever, jeez. But of course, in that moment, Zatanna and Xanadu both have their own little vision quest things going on. Zatanna sees her father, and Xanadu seems something. It's just her talking. Then we cut back to Constantine in June, and he's recapping to her how he ended up here, and she's recapping to him. And she says how there's just this rhyme going on in her head constantly of there was a crooked style, he walked a crooked cat, and immediately Constantine covers her mouth, and he's like, hold on, you're saying there's a rhyme in your head? Okay, I think I get it. That was the spell that Madame Xanadu used in order to rip the Enchantress from you. I used to know it. I hope I remember all the words. So he starts saying it, and it causes just this intense pain in June. And he points out, like, yeah, no, this is going to hurt you, like, a lot. It's the reason you can't finish it. It's in your head, but you can't finish it because it hurts you. So this is the only thing that I can do to save the world. Like, I don't care about the world, but I'm in the world, so I kind of need to save the world. So he keeps on continuing with the rhyme. And as he's, on the ground writhing in pain, Dead Man shows up. And it's like, all right, that's enough. And Constantine's like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. So as everyone's freaking out, Shade and Zatanna and Xanadu, Mind Warp shows up from like 3 issues ago. And was like, hey, so with all this magic stuff going on, I don't even know why I'm here. But I'm going to go over to that cabin where the magic seems like it's most centralized and try to help. Okay, bye. Then we get back to the Dead Man Constantine thing. And Dead Man's like, June, is he hurting you? And she's like, yes, incredibly. So Dead Man goes to possess Constantine. He's in there for like maybe a quarter second. And then he pops out going like, oh my God, it's so filthy in there. What have you done? And he's like, I would have warned you not to go in, but you didn't give me any warning. Anyway, I'm going to have to do this. Sorry. And he continues on with the rhyme. And before Dead Man can interfere, he finishes it. And she has all this magic crackle about her and seemingly disappears. We go back to Mind Warp, who just popped in front of Enchantress's body, and she's like, oh, this is private property. But then back to the Dead Man thing. June's gone. All the magic surrounding them is gone, and everything seems to be okay. We see that seemingly Enchantress and June have fused back together, and Enchantress now is not entirely sure what's going on, but it happened. So Enchantress asks Xanadu, like, hey, what happened to me? And Xanadu's like, oh, no, you rest. We'll deal with that in a minute. But then, the whole team comes together, talks to Xanadu, and is like, all right, so how about you tell us what in the hell just happened? And Xanadu's like, okay, so I was messing around with the tarot cards, and basically they told me that I had to do that in order to get you guys together to form a team, because something really, really bad is going to happen, and you need to be a team for it. And Constantine and pretty much everyone else is like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You just wanted to mess around with Enchantress's power, and now you're coming up with an excuse now that it got away from you. We're out. Bye. And everyone leaves. Xanadu looks down at her scattered deck, and something calls to her to flip over one of the cards. And that's where the issue ends. There's nothing else fair. So this issue probably made the most sense out of any issue we've done so far of this, and I like it for that. But at the same point, the fact that this was just like, all right, and now we're done. Yep, all it took was Constantine just hearing that there was the rhyme. That's what was necessary. Like, it did, everything else was just side dressing of they are needed to be a team for the next thing that happens. But this particular thing, all we needed was Constantine and June to be in the same place. All right, sure. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It feels like kind of a letdown after all of it. It was doing so much crazy stuff, and then in the end it was just like, oh, we just needed those two. And really just the one. Constantine was pretty much it. So, yeah. Art is fantastic. I can't fault any part of that at all. It's good throughout. It's just the writing. It just feels like all of that for, okay. This one wasn't even important. It's the next one that's important. A lot of people died, but this one wasn't important. So no, overall, I'm going to give this one a 6.5, and a lot of that is the art and like the stylist choices of it. Writing wise, I feel like it's actually a little bit like characters. They sound fine, but just the overall plot's just like, all right, I guess. So we'll see what happens next. Obviously, they have to keep being a team for the book to exist, but what will bring them together for real? I don't know. Tune in next month. Legion, Secret Origin number 4, written by Paul Levitz, art by Chris Batista. We left off last issue with Korldox helping destroy an enemy ship coming through a giant wormhole in space. And this issue takes place sometime after that. I'm going to try to run through this quick because I don't care. So Korldox is now on Earth. He's in Metropolis, and he's going to meet with some professor or something who's trying to retrieve an object through time. The professor's this big bug monster thing, but as the molecules or whatever in the experiment start going awry, everything explodes, and of course Quirrell is okay because of his force field, and he extended it out to reach for the professor as well. So they make a pact, and they're like, oh yes, we'll work together in order to solve this problem of time, whatever. And Quirrell is interested, especially because of Phantom Girl mentioning that she lived on an asynchronous world, and that could somehow impact time travel. Cut to the wormhole. The Admiral's talking to the Security Directorate, and basically they're just saying like, oh man, this Legion's getting out of hand, and they're taking away my own son from wanting to join me in the fleet, and also we're stuck here at this wormhole. Why can't we be on a rotation? Why do we have to be the ones here the whole time? A drone pops out, they blow it to bits, and then it's not even a thing anymore. So we go to Korldox visiting the Legion headquarters, actually, because he wants to talk to Phantom Girl. And basically she's just like, hey, Quirrell, you should join the Legion. He's like, no, thank you. Too many people. But did you know if anyone on your planet ever discovered time travel, like because you have different physics or stuff? And he's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think that happened. But really, you should join the Legion. So then we see that, again, just more people are pissed off that Brand is building up his own private army with the Legion. But the Security Director, it's like, I think they're doing all right. Like, they're doing, they're heroic for now. And, it's just political stuff. I don't have any place for it. And something about how the Directorate has a lot of sway, but not that much sway. That came up like 3 times over the course of the issue. I don't know if that comes up later. So they're welcoming in 3 new kids, Colossal Boy, Chameleon Boy, and one that doesn't get a name. They just don't name him. I think he's Karate Kid maybe, but I don't know. So anyway, they welcome him in. They start to celebrate when there's a loud thum noise. They run out. They see that Mr. Brand has been attacked by the actual construction equipment that's nearby. So they just start blasting that while trying to figure out what the possible reason is that it would have gone wrong, because apparently all of the equipment nowadays is it's kind of self-thinking in AI in some ways, but it also has the 3 laws of robotics by Asimov in there, which is rife with its own problems, but I'm not going to get into that. And the one dude in the Security Council is really acting shady, because he's like, oh, it would be a shame if Brand was killed before assistance arrived. But then, of course, assistance arrives because the Legion was just down the hall. And they show that Phantom Girl is going in and messing with one of the drones that was flying around. She's just able to actually influence things. So that's something. So anyway, they some more stuff is coming through the wormhole. It's getting bigger. So the one security director guy's like, hey, why don't we ask the Legion to help? And the Legion's like, dude, we should totally go help. But are you sure that they're doing this? Like, we shouldn't leave Brand unguarded because he's like the whole reason we're together. So they say like, okay, we're going to keep one crew here and one crew up there, and we're going to go and help them out of the wormhole. And then Brand's like, nope, that's not going to happen. You guys need a lot more power if you're going to go up and fight that. From invaders from another world, yeah, you need more power. And Phantom Girl's like, okay, well, Kroll Dox was in here talking about time travel before. He'll probably figure it out, and then we can just go back and get Superman. And that's where the issue leaves off of this looks like a job for Superman. Okay, sure, whatever. Like, I'm not even sure how this is a secret order. This is literally like other stuff that's happening around the Legion, and then just the occasional cut to, hey, we're welcoming in a new member. Clap, 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 clap. Like, a couple members are getting some focus. Coral Docs, obviously, Phantom Girl. But, like, the entire forming of the team itself seems like a C plot. To the others, like, Security Directorate's A plot. Wormhole is B plot. And then this is the C plot, is the actual Legion. So, okay, I guess. I'm just not... I don't even know what I want from it, honestly. I wish I did. I wish I was able to put into words what I want from this, but I can't. It's just not hitting me. So overall, for me personally, because again, this might work for other people, but for me personally, I'm giving this a 5. It doesn't do anything wrong, per se. It's just not interesting. Like, at all. Like, it's a political thriller without any thrills. It's C-SPAN. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this January 25th, 2012. And with it ends month number 5 of this little experiment of ours. We are just trekking along. I mean, we only have to get to May of 2026. Oh my God, that is so far away. Oh my God. Oh, okay. Focus on 1 week at a time. February 1st, 2012 is next week, and what comes with it is the number 6 issues of Detective Comics, Batwing, Action Comics, Red Lanterns, Green Arrow, Justice League International, Men of War, OMAC, Stormwatch, Hawk and Dove, Static Shock, Animal Man, and Swamp Thing. That is going to be wrapping up a bunch of the trades that we have here. And I am very much looking forward to getting the new ones off the shelf. But hey, if you have any thoughts on those comics, the comics that I just finished talking about, or any comics at all, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. That is at DC Comics Podcast, all one word. I keep on telling you to do this. I've told you like 21 times now, but I'm getting very lonely. It's cold over there. Additionally, we have a Patreon that you can pay into if you want. For as low as $1, you can get something. I don't know. I don't really do that, but it has a lot of bonus features from other things in the Mild Fuzz TV network, and the name of the Patreon is unsurprisingly Mild Fuzz TV, all one word. There's some cool stuff, at least for me. Check it out if you get the time. But that is it for me. I have recorded this outro like 13 times, and I always flubbed it somewhere in there. So now that I finally hit this part, I'm done. So I'm just going to go now. And always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.